Welcome to Judge's Corner. This is Judge Matthew Sabaugh. In this edition of Judge's Corner, I'm welcoming my guest, Cindy Shalter. She's from Turning Point Incorporated. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you.
Cindy, what's your position at Turning Point?
I am the First Response Advocacy Coordinator for the Forensic Nurse Examiner Program.
Very good. Today, I want the viewers to learn about Turning Point, but also I want them to learn about a real issue that's facing our community, and the issue of domestic violence that we're seeing in the courts on a daily basis, and that you're seeing with all the people that you're helping at Turning Point. And I'd like to first allow you to give an introduction of what Turning Point is. Absolutely.
Turning Point is an advocacy-based organization in the community that provides services to those who've been victims of and affected by domestic and sexual violence.
And these could include victims across the county?
Absolutely.
And how are these victims coming to Turning Point?
Well, they can access our 24 hours a day, 7 days a week crisis line, or they may be calling for shelter themselves. Law enforcement sometimes will give us a call, or even hospitals if somebody has come in and identified that there's a domestic violence going on in their home. But we also go into the community. We provide prevention services to our schools. We provide advocacy. We also do presentations and bring community awareness to this problem.
How big is the problem of domestic violence and sexual violence?
It's very big. I know that we're losing statistically somebody to domestic violence every 5 days here in Michigan. We ourselves take 12,000 crisis calls at our crisis line. We've provided services to 4,000 annually, and we talk to 8,000 youths in our prevention ed in our schools. So we're seeing a lot of it. We couldn't even provide the needs to 3,000 people this year who were seeking shelter services.
So this is a problem that affects people from all walks of life across the county?
Absolutely. It crosses all socioeconomic backgrounds and everything.
And are you seeing younger victims as well as adults?
We do. It's primarily women and children that we do see. But yes, absolutely. We've seen as young as just weeks old. And we've had children born into the shelter setting. And our oldest at the Forensic Nurse Examiner Program was 97. So it crosses all ages as well.
Could you kind of share what Turning Point's mission or goal statement is?
Absolutely. It is certainly to bring awareness, but to also provide services and supportive services to help those who are affected regain control of their lives.
And how are you providing those services?
We can provide them through education. We provide them through supportive services. We provide counseling, individual and group, for women and children in our youth and family program and our support service outreach program. And all of our services are confidential and they're free.
I understand. Is there also, what if someone's in a situation of domestic violence and they have nowhere to go? And that's what I can tell you that I see a lot in the courts where, and oftentimes it's the woman is the victim. There's no denying that. Where the woman doesn't have her own financial means, maybe has children in the house, feels like there's nowhere to go. What does Turning Point offer somebody in that position?
Well, we can offer them shelter, providing that we have space available. But if they call and there isn't space available, then we can provide them some other phone numbers and resources to try to find some, space where they can go to be safe, and even maybe help them with a safety plan in order to get out of a situation that they're in currently. So we're going to do what we can. If they can just give us a call, if it's safe to do so, we're going to do what we can to try to help that person.
It was also my experience when I was an assistant prosecutor for Macomb County that domestic violence cases are really among the most challenging criminal cases that police have to handle when they go to the home, that the prosecutor's office handled, and now as a judge I see how difficult it is handling these cases in court because it involves a family. Right. It involves oftentimes husband and wife, there's children involved, or a dating relationship, and at some point these two people are in love or they still love each other. Right. How do you counsel someone that's in that position where they don't they don't want to leave that person. They don't want to make a police report.
Well, certainly they love this person. They just don't like the behavior. And so that's really tricky because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. You know, what is being said to her? Is she being threatened that if you do say anything, if you do call the police, then there's going to be further harm? And we have this misconception that if women just get out of the situation, that they're going to be okay. You know, if it's so bad, just go, leave. But that's often when it's the most dangerous. So women don't leave, and they do stay. And then we blame them for not getting out of a situation that is, you know, harmful. And so when she does report, maybe she's met with judgment or victim blaming, and she's not going to report it again because she didn't have a good positive experience the first time, so she didn't get out. And so we often tell them, just leave, you know, just get out. But that's always when the violence escalates.
So that's not Turning Point's message?
No, our message is certainly different than that. We want to empower somebody to feel like they can. There's a lot of barriers in the way that might prevent somebody from leaving. Because when it comes to domestic violence, there's these patterns of behavior that are going on, and this is about power and control. So this batterer may be taking away some of the things that she would need in order to get out safely. Maybe transportation's a barrier. Maybe the children are being used. Maybe her financial resources are zero. You know, maybe she doesn't have a job because she's lost it due to the violence. So there is nothing she can do. She's stuck. So we have to make sure that she can get out safely, that she gets those resources. And we don't provide in our community enough to help women get out and you know, be able to stand on their own.
Domestic violence in the courts is ruled by what the law says. The law defines domestic violence as an assault or an assault and battery against someone that you have a relationship with, and it includes a lot of relationships, somebody that you're married to, or that you have a dating relationship, or a child in common, or even now that someone that you previously lived with. But I know, as you know, that the real definition of domestic violence is a lot broader than that. And it starts often a lot sooner before it ever escalates into actually assaulting or putting someone in fear of harm. Could you talk about that? What is domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence is going to be a pattern of behaviors that are going to occur over time. And it usually starts to occur after the relationship is gelled up a little bit more. You know, I ask women all the time who think that, you know, why didn't I see something? And sometimes they don't see it because it's many years later. So it takes a lot to really identify that what's going on is in fact domestic violence. Because it's really subtle. It's not in your face. It's not always physical. So we think that we can fix what's going on, and we just can't.
So power and control are the two biggest factors.
It's all about power and control.
And what does when you say the batterer, this person again has a relationship with the victim?
Right.
How do they get to that point where they would cause harm to someone that they love?
They could isolate them, use the children. Mom's this, mom's that, mom's crazy. So they start to isolate them, remove them from all their support networks.
What do you see as a hope for both the victims of domestic violence and then the batterers? What do you see as a way to really solve this problem?
Well, I think there needs to be some more batterer accountability, certainly, and providing some more resources and education to those who are affected so that they can maintain some control of their own existence through, you know, the community resources and education. We need more housing, and we need, you know, transportation is a big one as well.
In Macomb County, and certainly here in the 37th District Court, when we sentence defendants who are convicted of domestic violence, an essential piece of rehabilitating them through probation is going to be batterers intervention programs. And there is, as you know, a variety of programs that are being run out there, some very short programs, some long programs. And it's often been told to me by professionals in the field that it can take up to a year of intensive counseling before you're really going to change the behavior of a domestic violence defendant. Did you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I do agree with that. But it is also a choice that one is making in order to control another human being. So, but I do agree they do need some intensive work.
But it's not going to go away. I always tell defendants it's not going to go away just because that relationship is over. If they're dating someone and they're accused of hitting them, you know, maybe those two should be apart. But the batterer is going to carry this behavior on to the next person that he or she dates or marries.
Absolutely.
And so we don't really solve the problem. And the other factor that we're seeing is alcohol and drugs are playing in a role also.
Absolutely, that's a huge warning sign. So if there's an increase in, substance abuse, then that's certainly an indicator to watch for.
Okay. One of the services that you indicated that Turning Point offers is the forensic nurse examiners.
Yes.
What is a forensic nurse examiner?
A forensic nurse examiner is a specialized nurse who does evidence collection from sexual assault victims.
So how many of those examiners do you have on your staff?
We have quite a few, and I want to say there's probably more than about 12.
And when would you need them?
We are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for that particular program. So when somebody comes forth and says that there has been a sexual assault, then we will get a phone call and we respond within 30 minutes of that, either to a hospital setting. Maybe this assault victim is not medically cleared to leave, and we can get privileges to go in and do an evidence collection there. Or they can come to our forensic nurse examiner program in Clinton Township. And
really, time is of the essence when it comes to collecting that.
Absolutely. We can collect up to 96 hours after the assault occurring.
Thank you very much, Cindy. We're going to get right back to some more information about Turning Point after we take the break.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Nowhere in the corridors of pale green and gray, nowhere in the suburbs in the cold light of day, there in the midst of it, so alive and alone, words support like bone. Dreaming of Mercy Street, where you're inside out. Dreaming of mercy.
Welcome back to Judge's Corner. My special guest today is Cindy Shalter from Turning Point. Cindy, we talked about the services offered by Turning Point, and before the break you were telling me about the forensic nurse examiner. What other types of services does Turning Point provide to the community?
We also run the Personal Protection Order office, and out of that office, it's not just for those who have been victims of domestic violence, certainly. We run that for the entire community. But out of that office, too, are 2 legal advocates that can go to court and do court support for victims and survivors as well. And we also run a secondhand store. And so our secondhand store generates a lot of funding for us as well through the donations with the kindness of our community. And at the store, so if you shop there and purchase things, it goes back into the services we provide. And that's how we're able to do those things for free, as well as survivors who come to our shelter setting don't have to pay for some of the items that come out of that store so that they can get back on their feet.
So going back to the personal protection order assistance, that's someone that feels in fear of another person, can get an order from a judge prohibiting that person from having any contact with them, personal protection order. And I know that people are often afraid to go into court because maybe they don't have an attorney, but your advocates would be able to assist that person. They wouldn't need to go out and hire an attorney. Is that right?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm certainly hiring an attorney would be a choice, but we are certainly there to provide support in the court system. We can go to the police station with them. We can go to the hospitals if somebody is there and needs some advocacy and support.
And how does someone know whether they need a personal protection order? I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, it's not that bad. And we all know that this stuff can really escalate pretty quickly from something that might not seem that serious into a situation where someone's killed.
Right.
And as judges, just to share a little bit about my job, is that when I handle domestic violence cases, I have to set a bond on the person before they're convicted, or obviously they're innocent until proven guilty. But the court has to set a bond to make sure that the victim is protected and that the community is protected. And so what the court will pretty much issue as a standard bond condition is that the defendant have no contact with the victim. And the purpose of that is to protect the victim while the case is pending. But tell me about how the personal protection order works from your end.
Well, we certainly know that it's just a piece of paper. It's just another tool that can be used in order to keep, a paper trail and to provide, officers the ability to keep somebody safe. Certainly if there's an order of protection.
But it's security. It's an order by the court that the person have no contact with them. Right. And if a person feels that they're in imminent harm or that this person is harassing them in any way, they can go to the court and request that order. Is that correct?
They sure can.
Okay. And when they go to your office, it's right there in the circuit court in Mount Clemens, is that right?
It is. It's right on the first floor. As you enter the building, you make a left, and it's right there as the office is.
Now, you also mentioned, Cindy, that there's the store, the resale shop. And I want to ask you, how does Turning Point fund it?
Well, Turning Point is funded, 65% of it is government grants, and the rest is private donations or private grants. And that's how we are able to keep things going. So we do rely on the community quite a bit for their generosity to help us.
It's a very important service that you provide. And I know it's not cheap, and you probably have a lot of volunteers also. Is that correct?
We do. We rely on the volunteers. They're really great to come help.
If a member of the community wants to help Turning Point, believes in this cause, how could they help?
Well, they can donate their items. They can donate their time. I know Christmas is around the corner. We have a lot of people that are really generous with donating food and items, and we have a wish list. And so certainly going to our website is going to be able to tell you a little bit more about how you can help.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your background. How long have you been in this position?
I've been in this position, I've been actually at Turning Point 18 years. I started off as a volunteer myself. That's
a long time to have a good picture of what this problem looks like. Yeah. What have you seen in those 18 years? Do you see this getting worse? Do you see more public awareness? I do see a lot of public awareness. I still think that it needs to be a conversation that continues and needs to continue. And it needs to involve the entire public. It needs to involve our youth. We need to start teaching our young what a healthy relationship looks like. I think it's very important. I mean, I go to schools and talk about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse, but this is just as big of a danger. When you start getting involved in bullying and also violence or threats in a relationship. I know some of the numbers that have come out are saying that young girls in school and dating relationships are being victimized. Yeah. That this is becoming somewhat normal. And so you're going out to the schools and talking about that with both girls and boys? Yes, they do. They go into the middle schools and they go into the high schools, and I know they see 8,000 students a year. Mm-hmm. And we need to protect everyone from this. The history of it always was that it's a family problem. You know, that it stays behind closed doors, and the police should stay out of it, or the courts should stay out of it. But we know the problem affects everyone. Yeah. It affects the kids. It affects the society. That there's victims, so many victims who are killed as a result of domestic violence. And so it needs to stop, and I'm glad that you're doing your part to help that. So I hope the viewers got a good idea of Turning Point's services. and that they can contribute in any way that they'd like to Turning Point.
Right.
We'll have the website available.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, everyone, for viewing Judge's Corner. This is Judge Matthew Sabah.